The House Ethics Committee investigation into allegations against Representative Matt Gaetz has hit a bit of a roadblock, as the Department of Justice is now refusing to provide the committee with relevant information about their own probe into Gaetz. Now, as the Daily Beast reports, the DOJ's refusal to turn over documents is leading them to consider issuing subpoenas. In fact, according to sources familiar with the matter, the committee has already authorized multiple subpoenas to the DOJ for the information, but has not served them yet, and they're considering doing so soon. Another source added that it's kind of strange, unusual for the DOJ to push back against the committee to this extent, especially when this relevant investigation is no longer active. I mean, that right there is pretty bizarre. They had an investigation against Matt Gaetz and then dropped it. So it doesn't make any sense that they would stonewall these requests for information. It's not like the feds haven't in the past been willing to pass information to relevant committees doing investigations. Their only rule is don't interfere with an active and ongoing investigation. And in this case, the Gaetz investigation, as I mentioned, it's no longer going on. I'm feeling some alarm bells go off here. I'm hearing them, okay? I don't see any reason why they would refuse to share any of this information unless they decided to drop the investigation into Gaetz, not because they couldn't find anything, but because they did. And whatever that is, there's someone there that doesn't want it getting out. Call me conspiratorial, but what other conclusion is there? The other curious thing is that the Ethics Committee had previously cooperated with the DOJ's investigation into Matt Gaetz. And yet now they're not returning the favor? Something is wrong here. Something's going on. Something is amiss. Look, at the end of the day, the result of this stonewalling is not the end of the investigation. The investigation is still going on. It's just the majority of evidence. It will still be able to be collected without having to go to the feds. Problem is, it's going to take time. As the Daily Beast points out, the DOJ's case file would likely offer shortcuts to crucial witnesses or other pieces of information, while possibly providing insight into unproductive lines of inquiry, and thereby saving the committee a lot of time. Now, that might be the point. You see, the timing here is interesting. Voting begins in Florida's congressional primaries in about 3 months. So think about that for a minute, okay? Stonewalling the investigation, letting it drag out, even though they might have the relevant information right there for the ethics committee to look into, to gather up, and yet they're not releasing it. They're dragging their feet. Why? Well, 3 months before the primary. Very, very strange. Very interesting. Look, not only that, but Gaetz, we got to remember that Gaetz got Kevin McCarthy removed for failing to, get rid of this investigation and make it disappear. And this is, again, the House Ethics Committee investigation that he has been able to block. So that tells me that maybe Gaetz got some friends in the DOJ. Or perhaps this information, the information on Gaetz, might involve some people in some very powerful places within the government. Because, look, I keep going back to George Santos, and there was another congressman that was also removed from Congress, and they were both saying the same thing. There are sex and drug parties going on in Congress involving some pretty powerful people. Well, what has Matt Gaetz been accused of? Trafficking and going to these parties, doing illicit drugs, and having sex with sometimes minors. I don't think that's a coincidence here. I think that there's something going on. And once again, this is going to be probably the world's worst kept secret, that people in power are going to abuse that power to do some shady things, some possibly illegal things, and certainly some on ethical things, and they don't want people to find that out. Big shocker. But again, I don't have any actual information to prove that any of this is true, but sure seems a little fishy.